So for those of you guys who don't know, which I'm pretty sure all of us don't because we don't really play Fortnite, at least I don't expect anybody here to play Fortnite. Fortnite added a ranked mode in their last major patch update. Now, if you listen to all of their biggest creators, Ninja, Tim the Tatman, Daquan, Myth, they all seem to hate Fortnite's new ranked mode. They all have a bunch of different reasons for it, why it's good, why it's bad, what like the casual mode feels like and the ranked mode feels like and everywhere in between. And to be fair, I'm not really here too much to like talk on that, but I really wanted to ask, since it used to be a big question in my stream, should Dead by Daylight get a ranked mode? A lot of people have asked for it to be like split as a way to split up the competitive or sweaty players from the people who just want to chill and have a good time. And to be completely fair, I was always kind of against this just because I didn't want the player pools to be any smaller. But I figured I'd take some time today and really look into like what would Dead by Daylight look like if it had a ranked mode. So one of the first things we have to address is what would a ranked mode actually do? So the general idea of having a ranked mode would be to split up the competitive players from the casual players. One of the unique things about Dead by Daylight is there's a lot of people who just kind of enjoy playing the game casually. Most of the people who play it just kind of unwind and have some laughs and enjoy some jump scares with friends. However, with a lot of long-running games like this style, a good portion of players who are still playing it have been playing it for thousands of hours because they enjoy the competitive aspect of the game. They enjoy getting better, they enjoy locking more perks, which allows them to try out new things, which make them even better survivor or killer than they were before. That feeling of progression that comes from playing Dead by Daylight for a long time is something that really brings people back to it, and it's one of the main reasons why people play it for so long. That feeling of progression is why people play a lot of games for extended periods of time, whether it be Dead by Daylight, Fortnite, or anything else in between. So the conflict we have now is that you have a game that's stuck between those competitive players and the people who just want to chill, all in one pool. Imagine you're a survivor, right? And being a survivor is kind of like being on a group project. You've got the students in the class who want the A plus or, want to double pip and escape. You've got the people there who just want to pass and the people who honestly couldn't care. But at the end of the day, all four of you guys are working on the same project. Now, if you've ever been on a group project like this, you know that dealing with those people who don't care when you're trying to get an A can be infuriating, almost to the point of you want to pull your hair out. And it's kind of rough when you're just all in the same boat trying to work on it together. On the flip side of this, because this isn't the only thing, you've got a lot of different types of killers out there. You've got the killers that are just playing, to have fun or to try something goofy. You've got the killers who are literally just there to try to get some points. You've got the killers who are trying to test their skill to see if they're improving as a player. And then you've got the killers who literally just want to kill you. That's all they care about. Now, since you've got such a wide range between both the killers and the survivors, and all of those people are just kind of mixed in, it kind of means your games are completely random. You can have really good games in which everyone's playing the hardest and everyone's having a good time because they're trying hard. You can have really good games because everyone's goofing off. At the end of the day, when you light up a game of Dead by Daylight, you really don't know what you can get. And sometimes it could be really good, but sometimes that could be also a really negative experience. So that's kind of where it stands. The hope of creating a ranked mode would be also meaning there'd be a casual mode, which would create a stress-free environment so players could try out new builds or farm points without the fear of losing their rank in Dead by Daylight. Now, is this a good thing? To be completely frank, it would have to ask, and it's somewhat based on the situation, right? If you say you're playing Dead by Daylight and you only have a couple hours, you just kind of want to have a couple, some chill, relaxing game with friends, the idea of a casual mode would be really cool. You know what I mean? You could just go in, there's no stress, you're not worried about losing rank, you're just going to play a couple of games and have some laughs with your friends. So the idea here is that by having a casual mode, you'd have a mode you can go to when you're not trying to be the best and you're not even in the right state of mind to play try hard the entire time. However, my thought here is even if there's a casual mode, doesn't mean that everyone going into that mode is going to play casual. I'm sure if you've played anything like League of Legends or any other competitive games, just because you're not taking it seriously doesn't mean that everyone you're playing with is, even if you're not in ranked. That's just kind of the truth. Not to mention, there's also the fact that even though you're trying to chill, doesn't necessarily mean the killer is. He could be going in that mode intentionally to try to grief players that are just trying to have a good time, or vice versa. There could be survivors who are just going into grief killers who are there knowingly trying to try new things, and they just come there and play in that mode specifically to bully people who aren't going to be trying the hardest. On the flip side of this, you'd have the ranked only mode, which would put the mentality, or at least I would assume put the mentality of the people you're playing with, that if you're playing in ranked, you're expected to play at your rank. Again, if you've ever played League of Legends or any of these other games, there's a level of toxicity that you can end up dealing with, or harassment if, say, you have a bad game and things like that. And having a ranked only mode means people might end up caring even more, and could increase the level of toxicity and harassment received in both pre-game and possibly during game, pre-game, and in post-game chat. So it is something to consider. I don't know if necessarily having a separate mode would make that better. It would mean that people are probably going to expect more from you, and if you don't reach that, then people might get a little angry. Lastly, since there's still no rewards for being ranked 1, I feel like it'd be a little inappropriate to have a separate mode, because without a reward, there's very little to incentivize players to play that mode. If you know that the most competitive and try-hard people are going to be there, and there's still no reward for playing like that, it's really hard to get people enticed to play that mode without there being any ranked, or reward, I should say. Not to mention, like, ranked or high ranked in games in general right now already has longer queue times. If you were to split that into ranked only and casual, the queue times would just go up and be even higher. So we know some of the thoughts on whether or not it would be good. The next question that I guess I would ask, or people would ask me, is, if I was in charge of it, how would I make it work? First thing I would do if I were to add a ranked mode to Dead by Daylight is there'd have to be some sort of incentive for playing at rank 1. You need something to convince people to play ranked, otherwise the queue is going to dry up within days. I would say you need something not just for people who play at the really high levels, but you also need something for people that are unfortunately just bad at the game. Eventually they'll get better, but if you only give them the stick and never give them a carrot, even if they're not good, they're never gonna stick around long enough to get that carrot. So you've got to have something that's incentivizes both high-end play and low-end play, so that they still get something, even if they're not the greatest. Another important thing that you'd have to think about is the offerings and add-ons. If you can still level up while playing casually, then there has to be some sort of limit or some sort of restriction or something placed on the best offerings in the game or the best add-ons in the game. Otherwise, players will just farm up a bunch of the offerings in casual mode and then take them to the ranked games and then just destroy people. And it will drastically change how they look in terms of the ranking if you have the right add-ons. But let's talk about some of the things I would do to help fix this problem. First things first, let's talk about rewards. Now, based on the information that I have from Steam Charts, you generally have about 16,000 active players average over the course of 30 days. Now, there could be higher or lower, the numbers aren't exact. That's the general information of what I have for people who are playing. With that in mind, what I'd recommend doing is something very similar to Deceit, if you guys have ever seen that game. In which case, say the top 1,000 survivors, top 10,000 survivors, top 1,000 killers, and top 10,000 killers are rewarded something based on being the top, 1,000 and 10,000 in their category. And then lastly, you could give a reward for everybody in both killer and survivor as long as they manage to make it to rank 1 by the end of the season. The idea of this is that you give them a reward just for hitting rank 1 to incentivize them to get to rank 1, but then you further reward people who continue to play and continue to play competitively, so it encourages people to not only hit rank 1, but to continue playing once they get there. Now, my thought process on what to do once they're there would be a system called legacy tokens. My idea here is that if, say, we take the top 1,000 survivors, you would give them 3 legacy tokens. Now, what you would do with the tokens is you could unlock a piece of legacy gear for any survivor who wasn't a part of the original legacy set. Now, I know they said they'd never bring back legacy as it was, but this is some way that they could bring it back, but still honor the people who had the original legacy by making the new tokens only work for their new non-licensed killers and survivors that are exclusive to the game. Meaning you could use it for, say, Ace Visconti, the Hag, Huntress, Fei Ming, or any of their own killers that weren't, say, the licensed people. Next, I would maybe have a no ultra rares rules, or a different number of ultra rares and very rares in ranked play compared to casual play. And then also for the survivor friend side of it, for ranked play, I'd probably limit it to duos, but not letting people queue in with more than 3 people, or more than 2 people, I should say, for ranked play for survivor side. This would just be for balance reasons. Playing a 4-man survivor friends is drastically different than playing, a solo survivor, like a solo players that are just good. There are some players who just kind of intrinsically know that, but it's very rare to run into them. And so if you're balancing around that, you'd have to change a lot more of the game, and it's a big difference. That also being said, like, I know some killers who have farmed up well over like 500 Ebony Moris, and if you just farm Ebony Moris or something like that in casual and just bring a bunch of those into like ranked play, it's really hard to quote unquote lose if you're playing like that, just to be fair. So the only way to keep that from being too tilted one way or another, you'd either have to limit whether or not those can be used in ranked in general, or limit how many of those have. So meaning if you have a stack of them, you have a stack of them that are based on rank play and you can only get them during rank play, and you have a stack of them that you can have in casual play that you only get during casual play or something like that. That's how I would handle that. And lastly, I would probably also give some sort of blood point bonus. At the end of the day, you want as many people playing ranked or engaging with ranked at some point during the month as possible. But you also want that option for people to be able to play without stress. That's the whole point of the casual mode. However, if you're giving people this super low risk option, then it should probably also be super low reward. And that's just kind of my thought there. In closing, I don't hate the idea of a Dead by Daylight ranked mode, but I think a lot of things would have to change before they could actually make it a thing and make it work well. And to be completely frank, one of the biggest things I think would have to change is the game would have to go free to play. My reasoning for this would be Dead by Daylight is a really popular niche game, but it's still a niche. An average Dead by player has about 15,000 different players a month, which isn't terrible, but it's not the greatest either. However, when they've had free weekends, they've gone to sometimes even 3 or 4 times that number of players, which is great. However, with queue times being as they are now in high rank, I feel like increasing the player pool with a free-to-play option is the only way to justify splitting what would already be a small player pool, with that basically filling it up with a large influx of players. However, one major thing that has happened, whenever they have done a free weekend, is a lot of hackers and exploiters have also come out of the woodworks as well. It's just one of the things that happens when your game's free. People just make a new account, hack. If they get banned, they don't care because they don't have anything attached to the account to begin with, right? So as it stands, I guess I would have to say I'm against a ranked mode being added until they iron out a couple of the other things I talked about. Legacy tokens, obviously a couple other kinks here and there, before they really go about splitting their player pool. Well, now I guess it'd probably be best for you guys just to deal with the luck of the draw. But before we go, what do you guys think about it? You guys like the idea of a ranked mode? Do you hate the idea of a ranked mode? If there was a ranked mode added, what types of rewards would you guys like to see? Let me know down in the comments below. Talk to you guys later. Until then, this is Shino, your gaming and anime ninja. See you guys next time.